Proximity Podcast episode number 2. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we are joined by what I consider as my dear friend, Nicole Reed, and my beautiful co-host, Stephanie Gitz, my wife. Nicole, thank you so much. I know that you're a busy mama, busy entrepreneur, and you got a lot going on. So thanks for carving out some time to spend with us. You're amazing. So we're going to jump right in because I am super excited about this. I'm not sure any of us are really prepared for what we're going to get into today. Nicole, I think you said, you're not. So we'll see how it goes. But, I want to start with just kind of where you are today. Since we kind of started working together, I've been following your journey, and I've just been so impressed by just everything that you do, and everything that you do. I know you would probably disagree, but everything that you do seems to turn to gold. So,
I have a slogan on my car that says that.
Look at that. Look at that. I love it. So, can you share with us and with the audience, just, where are you today? You're in the real estate space, just like me. So, tell us a little bit about your business and your team and just kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a real estate agent broker. So I do have concurrent license actually. So I have my own brokerage, which I do property management in, and then I have my license with EXP as well. Have a team, Nicole Reed Real Estate and Associates, and it's 7 of us. Then I have full-time staff as well, office manager, admin, and transaction coordinator. So we're growing, I grew fast, and then I had to cut back quickly because it's very important to make sure that you get the right people on your team, especially regarding your vision, your mission, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And I had some that really weren't.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
We scale back, we'll skim back, and now we're scaling again to grow the team.
The right way.
Way. Yeah.
Core values, culture. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So what did you do professionally prior to real estate?
So I was in banking for 16 years, started there when I was 20 years old as a part-time teller, and I worked my way all the way up to a vice president of the bank. When I decided that 4 jobs and 1 salary was no longer acceptable for me, and I had to make some changes. So banking industry was changing, and I personally just was not conducive to a lot of the changes in the practices within the banking industry. And so I had to make some hard decisions. It was tough because technically nothing really bad happened, but it was just a point in my life where it was time for a change. And I wanted to be there for my family, for my kids. I have 5 boys, and, they were all in sports and traveling. I wanted to be there. And then financially, I just felt like there was a financial growth opportunity for me, and I wasn't going to achieve that where I was at.
So you transitioned right from banking into real estate?
When I left banking, I had no clue what I was going to do. So the story is, I've been there for 16 years. One day I'm sitting in my office and I literally have a panic attack. And if you know me, I don't have panic attacks, but I had one. And at that point, I left work. I called my doctor. I had an appointment with them. And then I took off for a couple of days. And
did you know at the time it was a panic attack, or did you think something else was?
I didn't know what it was. I just know I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get myself together. Like it was crazy. And because I've never experienced anything like that. I handle pressure and stress pretty well, I think. So I've never really experienced that. And I had that happen to me while I was at work. And it was kind of an eye opener for me. I really truly believe that God was pushing me out that door 3 years ago. And I was just so attached to the convenience and the comfortability of being there that I was scared to just leave. That's all I knew really, from my adulthood. But that happened, and it really kind of just opened up my eyes to really think about my physical health, and just, am I really happy doing what I was doing at that time? Because at one point I was, but I wasn't anymore. And I was just kind of going through the motions, and it was dreadful getting up, dreadful going to work. Like everything just became very dreadful. And I had a conversation with my husband that weekend, and I told him I can't can't stay here. Like, I've got to do something. I don't know what it is. The only thing that I know is that
Yeah.
I can't stay here. Like, I prayed about it. We prayed about it. And God gave me a release and I felt good about it. My husband gave me permission, you know, and he supported where I was going with that. And I went back the next week and I gave my resignation. I gave him a month and a half to figure things out. So I stayed to the end of the year, but I really didn't know what I was going to do. My whole focus was to take a sabbatical, pray about it, like get my energy, my mind, my spirit, all of that back intact because I lost it. And that's what I did. I just focused on me. I prayed about it, you know. And then 4 months later, me and James, my husband, was having a conversation and he was talking about real estate and getting into the investment side of real estate. And it was almost like this bright light bulb just came off and it was like, oh yeah, you should get your license, right? And so that's kind of where it was because I've always had a passion for real estate. When I was in banking, I did financing, I did second mortgages, home equity lines, you know, I was a lender as well. And so I've always had an eye and a passion for that. In the banking industry, it was a conflict of interest because I was an officer of the bank, so they would not allow me to have my license as well. So it was just kind of like, oh yeah, let's do that. And the next week I found a class. The next week I went and took the class. Then after I passed the test from the class, the next week I went to DPOR and took my PSI. And then the next day I was at a brokerage with my license. And the following week I had my first contract. And I've been rolling ever since.
That's crazy.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Nicole does not play around.
She does not play around. That's part of why she's been so successful for sure.
Well, and just real quick, honey, I think there's so many, I mean, I could probably spend just hours and hours talking to you, but there's so many lessons in kind of what you just laid out, because I think so many people, they get stuck and they, you know, they, I mean, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I had panic attacks when, you know, we were in pharma. I had more than one. And that's a scary thing. Like the first time you're like, am I having a heart attack?
Yeah.
And so, so many people, they wake up every day and they're not excited about what they do. And you took action, and I know that was hard.
Yeah.
And so there's some lessons in that, and, you know, putting yourself in position where you can take a sabbatical too, like where you know, where you can afford to take a sabbatical in time, and having a supportive husband, obviously, I know was a big deal as well. So, anything else you want to share with regards to just that? Because I think it's really interesting for people to hear that, you know, if you feel like that, which I think so many people do, you know, how do you kind of make that transition?
Yeah, it's really, for me, I just had to step out on faith. And sometimes when I make decisions, it's like, I don't even think about it. I just dive in and I go. And I was to that point where I was like, I just gotta go. Like, I'll deal with the consequences later, but I gotta go. But, you know, financially, I was financially okay, right? I had money saved up from 401k and different things, you know, from working. So that was a backbone for me. And I spent every dime of it, right? But so that was important. I still have 5 kids to take care of, right?
Yeah.
And didn't mention that the following year, so I left my job December 2015. And then the following year, for medical reasons, my husband left his job. So you're talking about 2 6-figure incomes that was wiped away. And it was, I mean, it was nothing but God, but we were both walking in faith. And like I said, he started talking about real estate investing, and I was like, oh, this is it, right? And we've been rolling ever since.
And you have been rolling ever since.
Can I ask, can you share some of your personal sales statistics and team? Just because I think it's important for the audience to know. Kind of where you, I mean, if you know why they should be listening to what you have to say.
I know nothing.
That's not true. That's not true.
Crushes.
So since I've been in real estate, I've sold over 70 million in sales, which is close to about 300 families that I've been able to assist in that. And I've also done, in addition to that, on the real estate side. So me and my husband, we do real estate investing. We rehab a lot of properties and flip them. And in the last 4 years, we've done about 35 of those as well.
35 in a year.
In the last 4 years.
4 years. Okay. I'm sorry. Misunderstood.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And you have a radio show?
I have a radio show called The Real Playbook Radio Show. So we are on air on Wednesdays. Well, I'm actually in the process of
many talents,
transitioning to a podcast as well. Well, it's going to be radio and it's going to be a podcast. Okay. So we're in a transition right now. But right now we're on ESPN Richmond on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. So you can definitely check out that show every Wednesday, 6 a.m. ESPN Richmond 106.1 FM. And it's the Real Playbook Radio Show. So we're talking about all things real estate, whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, whether you're a part of the industry, realtors, designs. And then we throw in a little bit of other stuff in like nonprofit, different things like that. So, but we just like to talk about real estate, educate, promote, and inspire people with real estate. Yep.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Definitely check that out.
Okay, so you've had all this success, and did this just come easy for you? It just fell in your lap.
Silver.
I mean, you were just born with the silver spoon. And I know this, Clayton, and I know this isn't true because Nicole shared it.
We need some, Tim, I might need you to get us some tissues in just a minute.
Yeah. She shared just the most amazing story with Clayton and I one night over dinner. We were breaking bread together. And because of this story, when Clayton and I were inspired to do this podcast, I was like, I want Nicole to be our first guest. Just because her story is so amazing and so very inspirational. So would you share like a little bit more about your background, like from how did all of this happen? Because it all plays a role, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does play a role. I will say that regardless of what I've been through, like it's made me who I am today, you know? And sometimes you've got to take tragedies and turn them into triumphs. But I'm a sibling of 10. So it's 10 of us. My mom and dad had 10 children. I am the fourth oldest, the youngest girl. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad, he's always been an entrepreneur and he's worked several jobs. I grew up in church, so Apostolic Pentecostal, and it was very strict, very, very strict. And they would consider me the black sheep of the family. So
you're a little rebellious.
A whole lot rebellious. If you said I couldn't do it, I did it. I was like, let me see what's going to happen. I was rebellious and I like to learn things the hard way. So I was a rough learner, but I'm an easy teacher, right? So I always felt like I didn't fit in. And I now understand why that is. I was set apart for a reason, but I've always had that feeling that I didn't fit in. And so I was always looking for love in all the wrong places, right? And at a very young age, I was molested as a child. And I think that was a really turning point for me where, that's what I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And, I was looking for acceptance. I was looking for just someone, anything, And I mean, my parents were great, but my dad was absent a lot because he was taking care of 10 kids. So he was working, he was doing what he had to do. I was daddy's little girl. So he taught me a lot of lessons, just when it came to the hustle and getting things for myself. A lot of lessons that I learned from my dad. But when I was 14 years old, just because of the people that I hung around gang members, right? So at 14 years old, I was jumped in a gang. And I did a lot of things that I wasn't proud of, And I've been to 4 different high schools. So every year I was at another high school until I finally moved to Virginia, which I did my senior year here. But yeah, so I lived a gang life. I did a lot of things that I wasn't proud of. I actually, at the age of 16, I was dating a guy who was in a gang as well and was doing all other illegal activities. But he was my boyfriend at the time, and he actually pulled a gun out on me and pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off. And that was kind of like an eye-opening for me as well, because that day my life could have been taken, and it wasn't. By the grace of God, it wasn't. But there were always people who would tell me I would be one of three things: dead, in jail, or young and pregnant. And thank God I was none of those. But that has always been the story. And I was able to not accept that story, not accept what people wanted me to be, and to make change. But it wasn't easy. And I would really say that the one thing that really helped me get out of that environment was my mom, who never gave up on me. Right? My mom would stay up all night and pray and walk the hallways waiting for me to come home. My mom would she would just always be there, right? And in a place where my mom and my dad were making transitions when we moved here to Virginia, and I had moved out at 16, so because I didn't want to follow the rules. You know, my mom and my dad were very strict. It was so many different things that we could not do, and I was trying to do it all. So at the age of 16, I decided that I was no longer going to stay here. And I jumped out of a window on the third floor in our house to get away from my mom and dad. And I never looked back. So I stayed with some friends for a while. And then eventually I ended up moving in with my older sister. And at that point I was 17 years old, where my mom and my dad was relocating here to Virginia because my dad got a job at the new Millennium Studios that opened up with Tim and Daphne Reed back in 97. And so my mom came by my sisters and told me to get whatever I had because I was leaving. I was not going to stay here. And I believe that because she did that, I'm here today. Because had I stayed where I was at, I honestly believe I would not be here today. Just, you know, being a product of my environment, the people that I were hanging around, the decisions that I was making were not good decisions. Not good decisions at all. So my mom, she came and she got me, and she basically told me, if you don't get in this car, I'm calling the police because you're still a minor. Right. And so I did, because I believe I was to a point in my life where I knew that I had to do something. I had to make a change, or I wasn't going to be here. I wasn't going to be here to see my future. And so I did. I got here, and we moved here in Camelot in Petersburg, and I went to Petersburg High School. By the grace of God, I graduated on time. I had to do night school, but I graduated on time, and I was able to graduate and you know, move forward from there, and I've had some college as well. Got my degree in business administration. But I've always had like a hustle, like just that go get it. So my dad was always, like I said, he's always working. He's always taking care of kids, but I was daddy's girl. So my dad would always tell me, if you came with half, I got the other half, no matter what it was that I wanted. So that kind of instilled a work ethic in me, that because I wanted things, you know.
All I had to do was come up with half, right?
All I had to do was come up with half. My mom made our clothes. Like, I used to wear homemade clothes and small shoes, because even though I was the youngest girl, I was bigger than my two older sisters. So I outgrew them and everything. So I would be wearing shoes that didn't fit me in homemade clothes. So if I wanted other things that other people had, I had to go work for it. So I started off young, selling candy, hustling candy, and, you know, making money until I was old enough to start working, where I had my first job at Arby's. But that was one of the things that I think that was really instilled in me when it came to like just going after what you want, you know, but also instilling that work ethic in me, that nothing is going to be given to you. My dad did that for me. And he was always there, and it was a conflict of interest with my mom sometimes. My dad would be like, shh.
Tell mama.
just don't tell her, you know. But yeah, I don't know. So
it sounds like your mom and your dad were the voices, the influence, positive influence in your life at that time. Was there anyone else that came into your world, either accidentally or you sought them out, that that helped to draw you, pull you, take you in a positive direction?
No, really. It was my faith, my mom, my dad, and my willpower to do something else, to be somebody different than who I was before. And I was smart enough and in the right mind enough to understand at 17 that me going ahead and leaving with my mom was an opportunity for me to change my identity, change who I was. And that's what I was able to do, with relocating. And just being able to start all over, start fresh in an area where nobody knew me, nobody knew my name, nobody knew my background, like nobody was there to judge me. They could only judge me for who I was today. Because I've been locked up. Like I've done some things that I'm not proud of, right? Thank you to the governor for expunging my record.
Well, but you're such a great example
Seriously.
of somebody that didn't let you've never let your past define who you are today. And I'm curious, like, where that came from. Did you look up to anybody, whether it was like on TV, from a distance? Was there anybody that you looked at and you were like, I want to be like her, or I want to be like him, or anything like that?
No, really, it was my haters. Like, it was the people who told me I would not be nothing. The people who told me I would be dead before I turned 18. The people who just told me that I would amount to nothing. Those were the people, that gave me the motivation to go out there and show them something different. Show them that I'm not, my circumstances, right? I'm not the bad mistakes that I made, the decisions that I made when I was younger. Like, I'm not that person. Like, I can be whoever it is that I want to be. So yeah, it was really, because I've never been that person that had someone that was like my idol. I just never had that idol, what is it called? Idol.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
idolized anybody that
I just never, like, I've just never had that. But the people who doubt me, that has always been my motivation.
That's fuel for you.
It's
you can get better or you can get better.
There you go.
Correct.
Yeah. And that, I think that's, I was just thinking back to kind of stuff that I've been through in my own life, and what you just said was exactly like, when you tell me I can't do something,
I'm going to show you that I can.
I'm going to show you that I can. Right. And I just remember some very specific stories. One was just, I was at a friend's house and I was making some bad decisions, and funny enough, this was up in Delaware. Funny enough, his father was a big real estate broker owner. I believe it was with Coldwell Banker at the time. And they were, I mean, compared to what, I knew, they were wealthy, right? I mean, they big house, lots of investment properties. And I remember my friend told me that his father told him, like, why are you hanging out with that kid? Clayton, like he will never amount to anything. Wow. You're just, and he told him, rightfully so, you're the product of, the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with, and he ain't one of them. And when he told me that story, it just ignited this little spark. I'm like, I use that as fuel,
right, and
still do to this day.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely relate to that. It's interesting though, Nicole, that there are a lot of people that for whatever reason choose not to do that, right? They get stuck into that to that environment, and they don't know how to get out, don't want to get out because they don't know that there's a better, right?
Yeah, I was gonna go there next. I'm glad you said that, because so many people that are still right now in that place that you were in, and it feels like, it may not be the case, but it feels like most of them, for whatever reason, choose to stay in that place. And Brendan Burchard you've probably heard it before, because I know you do a lot of personal development, but he says there's 3 types of people: caged, comfortable, in charge. The caged person is the person that's a victim. and woe is me. You don't understand. You'll never understand what I've been through. And it's like, they just stay in this place. And then what they don't realize, like they've put themselves in a cage,
Right.
and they don't realize the door's open. They can walk out at any time. You did that. And so what is it inside of you that gave you the mindset to do that? What sounds like you kind of already answered that question. A lot of it was just the haters.
Yeah, I think really it was my faith in God. You know, just being able to turn to a higher source, something that was bigger, that was higher, that was greater than me or anybody else out there. And to have the mind to want something different, right? The mind to change. A lot of people, like, they don't understand, like, it's a mental battleground in your mind, right? That's
Every
where
day.
the enemy plays at all the time. Like, an idle mind is the most dangerous thing that you can have. And I'm good at keeping myself busy, number one. So that is has been helpful for me, is just always staying busy. I'm always doing something. I'm always into the next thing. So my mind doesn't get to sit and dwell on past things and experiences. And like, even now I still have flashbacks about stuff. Like I was telling you guys before we started, like there are certain things that, like, this is the first time me publicly just talking about any of this, right? And there are certain things that I haven't personally dealt with myself internally that I know I need to deal with, because I know that some of that spills over into my relationships, into my, my relationships with my husband, my children, my friends, like all of that stuff. Like, people think that they don't have to deal with the issues, the damages, the hurt, and all of these things that we all experience in life in different ways. People don't think that they have to deal with it, right? And number one, you do have to deal with it. And even if you're not fully dealing with it with talking to someone, like, you have to deal with it within your own mind, within your own self, right? So changing the atmosphere, changing how I think, changing what I put inside of me, all of those things plays a part. And what I've found is, for the people that are stuck, number one, they don't want to get out of being stuck. Like,
you can't make them want it.
You can't make them want it. I know people that I've known for 20 years telling me the same thing. And it's like, I stopped listening, because I can't. I know personally that whatever it is that I want to do, all I have to do is make a decision. And then once I've made the decision, subconsciously, my mind, my body, like everything starts to react to get me to where I need to go, right? But people don't want that change. They don't believe they deserve it. For me, I believe I deserve it, right? There was I spent a lot of years feeling like I didn't deserve it, because I've heard it so many times before that I didn't deserve it, that it wasn't for me, that I wasn't worth it. So I spent a lot of time just telling my own self, right?
And that's what the enemy wants us to believe.
That's right.
Affirmations. Like I tell people all the time, affirmations are so important. I remember a time in my life where I used to write little notes, little affirmations, scriptures, different things that every morning I would wake up and I would go, it would be in my mirror in my bathroom, taped on the mirror. And I would have to repeat those things. And I would look at myself in the mirror and I would repeat those things. And I am a child of God, and I am set apart for a reason. And I'm worthy to have everything that God wants for me. I've had to tell myself that, to believe it, because when you hear the opposite for so long and from so many people, you begin to believe that you don't deserve that.
Especially when you're a child or a young boy.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but people, it's such a cycle that people get wrapped into. And a lot of times it's generational curses, generational cycles where people can't get out of it because, their grandparents went through the same thing. Their mother went through the same thing. And it's just like a cycle that nobody knows how to break. But it starts with your mind, right? It really does start with putting something in it that wasn't in it before, replacing it with the negative things that were there. And the only way that you can really do it is kind of like a deprogramming, like they do when people, that are in military, for an example, they're programmed to act to think, to operate in a certain way. And when they become civilians again, they have to be deprogrammed to civilian life. It's the same thing. You know, once you're growing up, you're in your rearings, you're programmed to believe, to think, you know, to respond in certain ways based off of your upbringing and your circumstances. And so it's a matter of deprogramming those things out of you and replacing it, reprogramming with the right
good,
things.
Nicole. So good.
That's so good. There's so many nuggets in there.
Well, and it's, I mean, that's really what this, you know, what this podcast is all about. It's, you know, getting in the room and because that's where the reprogram, what you put into your body, you know, what you read, what you listen to, who you're spending time with, you know, it's, if you had stayed in that environment, there's no doubt that you would either be you'd either not be here or you would be a dramatically different person today. When you shared this with us and you didn't go into great detail, because you weren't ready. We kind of forced you into this, but when Nicole, when you said that for the first time, I was like, no way.
Yeah, because I can't.
No way. Well, I mean, you are so, you know, just polished, and I mean, you are always dressed for the night. So, but I was like, no way. I was like, no way. You were not.
You some pictures.
You were not. Well, I would love. Listen.
Like, is this the same girl?
Listen, I would love to
wear baggy pants.
So
I was a tomboy.
Yeah.
I didn't put heels on until I was 18 years old.
No.
A dress.
You can't.
I wore dresses because of church. You know, I had to wear a dress. You know, growing up.
Oh
but
my gosh.
To like put a dress on and be like, oh, I'm cute.
Yeah.
That didn't happen until I was.
Well, it just reminds me too of like, because we all shared the same faith that God has a way of renewing, you know, making new.
Right.
And clearly he's done that with you in such an amazing way.
He has. I look at my life today and I'm just, for me, it's still like, girl, this is your life, right? It's unreal for me. Like, it's unreal to know that I'm a mother, you know, unreal to know that I'm now a GG.
Yeah, which that's unreal to me too.
I know, because you don't look old enough to be. Oh my gosh.
You know, to have successful businesses, you know, to be a leader, a mentor, you know, a coach, you know, all of those things for me, it's still unreal to me because I know, and like for the people who know me, like for them, it's just like, it's a surprise, right? But it's unreal, but I'm thankful. Like I'm blessed that my story is what it is. And I know that God has so much more for me. I'm just getting started. And I'm not a product of the decisions that I make. You know, I can't really even say that my circumstances were bad that put me in certain decisions. It was the decisions that I made that put me in those decisions. And so because of the grace of God, like he allowed me to walk through that fire and I smell like rose. You told me I smelled good when I came in. I smell like rose.
He did.
And only God can do that. Only God can do that. Just like he changed Saul's name to Paul. Like only God that can do something like that. And, you know, just to encourage anybody out there, like you don't have to stay the same. Like you don't have to be a product of your situation, your circumstances, even your decisions, right? I tell my kids all the time, like for every decision that you make, there's a consequence, whether it's good or whether it's bad.
Yes.
There's a law of attraction, you good and bad, right? So there's consequences to that, but you don't have to be a product of the bad decisions that you make.
Well, you're gonna make them.
And you're going to
sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. I mean, you're gonna make them, and I actually love that because I was thinking about I was kind of processing what you thought. Like I'm not a product of my decisions. Like we kind of are. We are and we aren't. Like it's right. But you, to your point, like you don't have to be a product of your decision. Like we've all made bad decisions. I mean, my God, when you and I met, I mean, I was you were pulling me out of a bad place. But you know, you made a lot of decisions when you were younger that had you not changed, right? Then that would have been the product of your right. But you made different decisions.
In the path of, I decided to start making different decisions that were smarter, that were better, that could give me an outcome that I was I wanted, that I would appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes like there's influences out there. When you're trying to find a way to be loved, or you're trying to, you know, just connect with people, sometimes you find that in the wrong places. And even though like it's crazy, because for me personally, I can think about every bad thing that I've done, and there's always been a voice in my head like, you know damn well, like, you should not be doing this. Like, what are you doing?
Is that your mother's voice?
It wasn't my mother's voice. It was God.
It was God.
It was God. And it didn't sound like my mom, and it didn't sound like my dad. It was God's voice. Like, even with my husband now, like, my husband is my second marriage. Even in going into my first marriage, it was like God was telling me, like, what are you doing? This is not it, right? I got two beautiful children out of it, right? But I like, it's like every step I know when I'm going right, and I know when I'm going wrong. And that's one of the gifts that God gave me, a gift of discernment, right? And it's just a matter of being obedient now. You know, they say obedience is better than sacrifice. I can attest that obedience is better than sacrifice. I've sacrificed a lot, you know, and again, I don't go back and think about, you know, all of those things and wish my life was different. My life is what it is, right? It has made me who I am today. It has taught me lessons that I pray my children will never have to learn, you know?
Of course, we've all made mistakes that we pray our kids never
right.
have to.
But
have
they
to
still,
make.
man, they still don't want to listen.
Most of us are
What
like,
do you know, Mom?
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Right.
And I feel like it's the human condition where we all have to learn the hard way. Like what's that quote about a wise man listens to the, or basically looks at the mistakes that others make and learns from them.
Right.
The fool has to learn for themselves. I was a fool for most of my life as well. Like we that's what we do, you know, but this quote, I pulled up this quote because I was thinking about your story, and Tony Evans said, God will meet you where you are in order to take you where he wants you to go.
Yes.
And because I think that, you know, we obviously have free will, but like you were saying, we make decisions sometimes that we shouldn't make. But God has a way of putting us where he wants us, as long as at some point we connect him, and we do, which you did, you know, like he has, look at where he's brought you. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to submit. It's like you have to give your everything, right, to God, and I'll just allow him to just come in. Like, so I didn't tell you a part of my story. So, you know, with all of this and transition and everything, and I mean, there's a lot, you know, married before, it ended up violently. And then even just finding my husband, you know, working at the bank. So I was his banker.
That's awesome.
But, you know, just finding him, it's funny because when he was actually going through a divorce, I was going through a divorce. We didn't know each other were going through a divorce, right? And he actually, once his divorce was finalized, is when he decided he wants to come and approach me. But he would come through the drive-through.
I remember him telling this story.
I don't know. He'll tell you a totally
Different
story.
Of course he will. Of course he will.
True. He don't add his little stuff. He'll tell you that I would not stop harassing him. I believe it's the other way around. You came to my job.
Sounds like the story your dad tells about your mom. Totally, yeah.
Yeah. And he came into my office one day. Well, the first time he came in, and he was there a little too long. And all my tellers knew, listen, if I got somebody that's at this desk for too long, you need to pick up the phone and act like you need me, right? And so he was there too long. And so one of my tellers, she calls, girl, you good? I'm like, yeah, I think we're okay. I think I got this figured out. So I told him, you know, yeah, I think I need to go and take care of something and need me back there. So I was trying to get him on my desk. So he was like, "Well, if I give you my number, would you call me?" And I was like, "Well, you don't have to give me your number. I have it right here."
Yeah. I'm your banker.
I got right here. Everything I need to know right here. So he waited about 2 weeks before I gave him a call. And he was like, after there, it was all good. But one day he came into my office, and some days I would be sitting out in the lobby, and some days I would be inside my office. Well, this day I was in my office, and he came into my office, and he sat down, and he closed the door, and he was trying to talk to me, and I was just like, I was kind of giving him the cold shoulder. I was still working through some things then that I've worked through now. But he sat there, and he literally, like, God literally told him my whole life. And he shared it with me at that, sitting there at my desk, where it had me in tears. And I was like, hell, like, how do you know all of this? Like, he told me everything, everything.
Wow.
And I ain't told nobody because, certain things I'm just private in my life. Yeah. I realize now, like, there are certain things that I went through to help somebody else get through. But he came and he just told me everything. And I knew that was God. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that point, I was like, okay, I guess I'll call him.
And he's still
here.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
he's amazing. So, Nicole, we're so grateful. I can speak for, both of us that you took not only the time, but you opened up about stuff that you haven't opened up about before. And I just know you're going to inspire a lot of people, not just through this platform, but through whatever platforms God decides to put you in the future. Like I said, you're just getting started. I'm so proud of you. I've known you for a few years now, and sincerely, like, just everything that you do, we're paying attention. People are paying attention, and just go get them, grow. Like, we are fans. So
I appreciate
thank you.
I appreciate you guys too.
We love you too.
I'll tell you this. Being connected with you, this is proximity, right? Mm-hmm. Being connected to you guys has changed my life. I felt I was doing okay in real estate, but just being able to be connected with you, to learn, to grow together with the organization and what you've built here with EXP has been a game changer for me. From day one, I remember us having a conversation, and I was like, listen, I need it all. I need you to tell me how to get to the next level. Like, I need this. And you're like, no problem. And every time that I've ever had to call you, if I ever needed anything, even when I do events, if I, asked you to come, like, you've never told me no. You've always showed up. You've always been there. You've opened your home to me, even, with events that we've done, both of you. And I just want to say that I'm grateful for you guys. I love you guys as a couple. I always tell people, like, you guys, I'm fans of your relationship, your relationship with each other, your relationship with your children, your relationship with God. Like, I'm true fans of that. I see your mentorship, your discipleship, the sacrifices that you make, the commitments that you make, all of that. And that does not go unnoticed either. So I just want to personally say thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you. I love your wife so much.
Me too.
Trust me, everybody knows.
I do have a hard time keeping my hands off of it.
Look,
yes.
The whole world knows that. She's such a sweetheart. And just like, you have always been welcoming, but just like the conversations that we have, like, you're just such a real, a real person. Right.
Thank you.
Which is hard to find.
I know.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to find, because people are always either wanting to live up with the Joneses, want to be who they're not. Like, you come with your authentic self, and it's beautiful, right?
That's what I fell in love with.
Yeah.
There's no question. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When she laughs, it's real. Yeah. And you nailed it. Like, there's just not a fake bone in her body.
Yeah.
And Yeah. So thank you so much, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
You're amazing.
Love you.
So,
You too.
hey guys, Proximity Podcast episode 2 with Nicole Reed. We are so grateful. Hey, get in the room and we'll see you next time.